Thank you guys for joining us again for another Movie Lingo discussion. I'm Eddie Lingo, and today, again, we're interviewing more winners from the Illume Short Film Festival. We have the creators of the short film Circadian. I have Dylan Lunt and I have Brie Seaton with us. Hello, guys. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, it's awesome to be here.
Good. It's good. It's good to have you guys. For those of you who don't know, Movie Lingo has been sponsoring the Illume Short Film Festival. The Illume Short Film Festival is about projects that have either a very low or little to no budget, and they're making the best quality, and they're being able to compete with filmmakers like themselves instead of going against those that can afford to get B-list actors or pay for the best cameras or things of that nature. And so I want to thank you guys for your contribution to the Illume Short Film Festival, your work, the short film Circadian. I loved it, and it really elevated the project. You guys won 2 awards, actually. You won the honorable mention for Best Short Film, which is the runner-up for Best Short, so congratulations on that. And then you also won Best Actress, which was awarded to Nicole McClellan. McClellan, sorry, I messed that up. Tell her don't hate me. Yes, so again, I want to thank you guys because I really enjoyed the project, and I'm glad to be speaking with you guys today. So let's just get right to it.
Perfect.
All right, so my first question, and either one of you can take it first, just please just tell myself and the viewers a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Sure. So I actually grew up in Wyoming, and so a little tiny small town, like 45 minutes outside of Jackson Hole. And I moved to Utah about like almost 10 years ago for a job relocation. And then shortly after that, I met Dylan, and then it's just been, just hanging out and doing some fun stuff ever since.
Awesome. Cool. How about you, Dylan?
So I'm originally from LA, and then my parents, when I was pretty young, decided they wanted to move to Utah, so I got kind of dragged out here. As far as film, it doesn't always sound like the best swap to go from LA to Utah, but, we're here, and it's been pretty good, so can't complain too much.
Awesome. I hear you. I get that story a lot, but it seems to be pretty common, people coming out from LA. I met a lot of people because I'm also in Utah as well. I met a lot of people that have a similar story. So as children growing up, what were your aspirations? What did you guys want to be when you were growing up? Who wants to take it first?
I'll go. So as a kid, my first thing, it's funny because it ties into movies, but I obviously just wasn't smart enough to realize that I liked movies for certain reasons. But awesome. My first one was I wanted to be like a paleontologist because I was super into Jurassic Park. So I was like, oh, paleontology, that's the way to go. And then a few years later, I was like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. And then I watched The Mummy, and I was like, all right, archaeologist time now. And then I went to that. And then a few years later, it's like, well, that's stupid too. I don't want to do that either. But it's like, I just kept hopping from movies without realizing I just liked the movies.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
How about you, Brie?
So when I was really little, I've always been like a creative ever since I was like super tiny. When I was 3, I told my mom that I wanted to be like a fashion designer and own my own company. And as I got older, I just, fell into like things with like books and writing. And then I really loved like art. So 2D was like a lot of the things that I did until I got into high school, and then I really loved the facts of like animation and different types of things. And so my whole life, I just knew I had to do something like in the creative field, no matter what it was.
Yeah, that's awesome. In the few interviews we've done, everybody's had different things that's motivated my. And for me, I was kind of the same path as you. There was always something creative, whether it was art or just creative story writing, and it just kept evolving until it ended up being movies. And then Dylan, I love the fact that movies, your favorite parts or favorite things about movies were inspiring you. You didn't realize.
Yeah.
You're actually just in love with the movies itself.
Yep.
So,
exactly. Couldn't quite connect it yet.
That's probably the best answer I've gotten so far. You're letting the movies tell you what you want to be. You're like, yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
I'm gonna do that. That's pretty cool. So, do you guys consider yourselves movie buffs?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now I can ask my favorite question. The last 2 interviews I had, and everybody I respect, no matter where your passion comes from, but I just find it amazing when I run into people who are putting out great acting or great quality of work, but they don't care for movies. You ask, and so my favorite question to ask, which I'm gonna ask you guys now, is, what are your top 5 films of all time? And when I asked them, yes, it's hard as a movie buff, which is why I love asking. But for them, they were like, I don't really care for movies like that, and they just throw out 5, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll skip that question. But I'm excited to hear you guys answer. Top 5 movies, please.
Yeah, I mean, like, we thought about it for like the last couple of days, but like, for me, like, what drives like my top 5 movies is mostly like the behind the scenes, because like my whole life I've always loved to watch the movie, and then right after I'll go and watch the behind the scenes to see like how it was made and what it's about and things like that. And so my top 5 are so like Knives Out, because Bob Duxay is like one of my favorite editors. He's just amazing. And so there's that one, and then like Evil Dead, but like the remake, simply because like the behind the scenes, like what it took for them to make that film, and they had so many people like who were up against them because of like the original cult like following, and so that one was like a really great film. I think that they did a good job. And then Get Out, but like Jordan Peele is like one of my favorite like creators, and so that one was just amazing. And then 1917, that one was pretty good. I really loved like the camera work and like the editing in it. Like, it just like blew me away to watch like the BTS for that film. So that one. And then of course, like I love like Pulp Fiction. That was something that I like grew up with, and Quentin Tarantino was like a big thing in my household growing up, and so definitely like had to be in that list.
That's awesome. That's a phenomenal list, and that's what I look for when I speak to people. I want to know like what is like sticking with them that inspired them. What's sticking with them just because of their love or passion for film or acting, or like you said with 1917, I'm pretty sure how they managed to pretty much make most of the movie seem like it's one continuous shot.
Absolutely.
That drew you in. And as a filmmaker, that's I love to hear lists like that. How about you, Dylan?
So for me, obviously, stuff with my childhood things. So Jurassic Park's one of mine, especially because, as a kid, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do all that stuff with the paleontology, but obviously that wasn't why I liked it so much, obviously. But
his mom always tells us when he was a kid and they first got it, he watched it every single day that he got home from school. So he's watched Jurassic Park at least 365 times.
Yeah. So I've seen it quite a few times. So it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. Another one on top of that, I really like Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars and sci-fi has always been a huge thing for me. That was another one when I was a kid that that was probably my first like real love of just film series in general, was Empire Strikes Back and all the Star Wars films, and just a lot of the groundbreaking effects and just the universe they built is just really something that inspired me. On top of that, there's Alien, which, I have like tons of books on Alien, I watch like behind the scenes all the time, and it's just a lot of the stuff when I made Circadian came from doing a lot of research on how Alien was made and just kind of different stuff like that. On top of that, I like Prisoners, which everyone kind of gives me crap for liking Prisoners so much because I watch it all the time, and they're just like, I don't know why you can watch such like an aggressive, depressing, brutal film all the time.
I watched it twice at the most, so that's something you can keep going back to.
Yeah, I've probably seen it like 20 or 30 times, but I just think like the performances for me are just so good, and I love Roger Deakins, so the cinematography is great, and just all of it. I just really, really love all of Denis' films, and Prisoners is probably my favorite of his. And then lastly, my other biggest one's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Obviously, if you look at like, so I love that film. Obviously, I have AI and stuff in my film, and sci-fi is just a huge thing for me, but I love 2001.
Wow, I've run into so many filmmakers that have never seen it, except for those that have gone to film school. They're forced to watch it, but those who have just decided to pick this up on their own, like myself, I didn't go to film school. They've never seen that, so it's amazing to hear you reference that one. Did you go to film school?
I did, actually.
So they made you watch it?
No, we didn't watch like
seen it
anything.
before.
I watched it on my own.
Oh.
I'm a big Stanley Kubrick fan anyway.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so then tell me then, at what point, I mean, I think you've already answered this a couple times, but I would like to know the exact moment when you realized filmmaking was for you.
Mine's all crazy anyway.
I think both of our stories are a little crazy. We're a little late bloomers, I guess. We're like hitting 30s here this year and finally kind of deciding like what we want to do. And for me, like I originally started going to like hair school because I really wanted to do like hair and makeup and like either like photo shoots or film, those types of things. Like I was always wanting to like work in somehow. And so I started out with hair and makeup, and then Dylan started actually going to film school. And when I helped him with Circadian, I found myself at 3 a.m. still working on the project, like not even realizing how like, I'd been up for, you know, how many hours, and then I have to go to my actual job at 5 a.m., you know? And so like, you just, when you realize it's your passion, you realize that like, that you have this, like, it's this weird energy that comes in, and you don't feel like sluggish or tired all the time. It's something that you always want to be like enveloped in. And that was like my moment where I was like, this is what I want to be doing all the time with my life. So
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, mine definitely like I said earlier, I flip-flopped to a million different things as a kid. And the funny thing is I just never was smart enough to realize that film was such a big thing for me, because I made tons of little movies as a kid with my friends. We made like little horror films, little like Star Wars ones, making like Harry Potter parody stuff, just weird stuff. And I took like other film history classes in high school and just was constantly doing film stuff, but never really thought it would be a career. And then I jumped from high school. I went to college for concept art for video games for a minute, realized that that wasn't really my thing. And so I dropped out of that. And then I, strangely enough, went and decided that I was going to do hair for a while. Did hair for a minute. That's how we met, because I was doing hair and she was going to be a model for a runway shoot, and they had me as one of the stylists. Did that, dropped out of that, didn't love that, and then I just kind of wasn't doing a whole lot for a couple of years. And then I'd been doing some freelance grip work on just like TV commercials, all sorts of other stuff. And then I did a couple little film festivals just for fun, because I liked making films, and just eventually realized, well, I keep going back to all this film stuff. Maybe I should go to school and see if I'm actually good at it. And then I ended up hopping and going to school for it.
Yeah, and that was the best decision, because you guys are definitely good at it. I know this is a little off track with the question. Just wanted to know, because I forgot to introduce such your roles in the creation of the short film. Dylan, who wrote it? I know you directed it. But and Brie, what was your role in the creation of this short?
So Dylan wrote and directed it. I helped a little bit when he was writing, just with like, you know, odds and ends, like, you know, like we were trying to figure out the title. So sometimes like we're really good at like bouncing things off of each other for soundboards. But my major ones was like the set design. Like literally go to work, get off of work, go straight to like building and working on the set. And then my other one is the editing portion of it, so post-production. And so I did all of the like editing and VFX like for the film.
Okay, so you already tapped into a future question. I'm just going to go ahead and ask it now. The set design. You said you were part of the team to build that. Where'd you guys pull that from? Because when I only know from your social media, you know, how it looked before you actually were filming. But when I first started watching, you know, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but when the character just kind of falls from suspension, boom, and then you're looking around, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, where are they? Did they rent a space? Did they build it themselves? What was the inspiration behind that set? Like, where did you guys come up with, and how and where did you build it?
It kind of just came from like our imagination. We talked about things that we really like from like films that are our favorite films. So we bounced off a couple of ideas.
Like 2001,
yeah.
Alien.
So we talked about those. And then, of course, because we both have art backgrounds, it was really easy for us to like make mock-ups. And so we just drew some things out, and then eventually got to a point where we were agreeing on things. And so I made a cardboard like model of it, just to kind of get like an idea of like what the structure is going to look like, especially because it's a set, right? So it's a completely different like beast than just building a spaceship. So we built that, and then we started looking into like, well, we don't want straight walls. So how can we make the walls like angular and get that like really cool design into it? And so we just started doing some research into it, and then I found this really cool like bone structure that makes that like hexagon shape to the cockpit. And so and then from there we just started building. We grabbed our measurements because we were on a sound stage, and so we grabbed our measurements of the room that we had to work with, and then just started getting to work.
Yeah, so we were pretty lucky that like the college campus had a soundstage that we could use, even though it was one that we were sharing with a bunch of other classes, a bunch of other students, and so every single time we'd go build a piece and build sections, we'd have to take it all apart, shove it up against a wall, get it all out of the way so everyone else could use the space.
Wow!
And there was a lot of interesting struggles with the fact that, you know, we built the model, but then we're not necessarily construction background people. So we get to the point where we build something and realize, okay, we don't even know how to build this now. And so then we'd have to just like nix a piece of it, change it up, swap something, or we'd like cut something and it wouldn't work, and then we'd be gluing stuff all over the place, and it just like there's a lot of just spitballing as time went on, just trying to make it all fit together. And we were on a huge time crunch because this was all written, built, filmed, and edited all in one college semester.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of just crazy stuff all moving all together.
Our house looked like a junkyard for a while.
Yeah,
because
all the pieces.
Yeah, all the pieces that we got were either like dump stuff people didn't want, and so we were just kind of collecting like items from people for free, and we would just find stuff like randomly and be like, oh, this is really cool, and you know, so we were just trying to keep it like, you know, almost virtually free. Most of the money that went in was going into like the fresh wood, because of course you want to make sure that the structure is safe and secure. So like if we have like our actors hitting the walls or doing things, it has to be safe. But like for example, the tubes like in the set, those are just really big printer cartridges.
Yeah, they're from like a huge printer.
They're ink cartridges.
Yeah, just big ink cartridges. We used them a bunch of different times in the set.
Egg cartons. We ate a lot of eggs and then just saved the egg cartons, you know, just things like that.
Ripped apart old keyboards and took the insides out.
We had 2 old tube TVs from when we were kids that we still for some reason had, and we pulled those apart, like just things like that.
That's so creative. You guys should have just like documented that and made your own behind the scenes.
Right.
I know, we thought about it.
It's a little Instagram thing, and that's as far as we could get.
I know, I saw the little bit on Instagram, but now I'm like wishing I would have seen like a weekly update, step by step. This is like you said, you like behind the scenes stuff. I'm fascinated with that too. I love to hear the stories of how people can be creative and just take limited resources, and that's phenomenal. You guys, wow. So you guys kind of already answered the question, but I'm still going to give Dylan you the chance as the writer to maybe if you want to tap into a little more. But what inspired the story, Circadian?
So for me, sci-fi has always just been a huge thing for me. So I've always wanted to make something science fiction, but I just always felt as though it wouldn't be possible with little to no budget, and it would be too hard to make in a short amount of time. And so I've always just avoided it. But my last semester of college, I only had one class, which was directing. And a lot of times just in film school, people just essentially kind of phone it in. You just can do your last little project. You make some sort of like some hitman does something or whatever, you know, something super just basic kind of thing. Not to call anyone out, but yeah, and that's kind of just how it usually goes. And I just didn't want to do it. And I was dealing with a lot of different like stress and anxiety and like mental health stuff during then. And so that kind of wrapped into this story where I wanted to have a character that was struggling with some sort of just like strain on his mind and some sort of mental stress going on there. And I wanted it to be in a sci-fi setting, in a spaceship cockpit, and I couldn't really find a good way to just have some sort of like trigger point that would make him snap. And that's when Brianna gave me the idea of circadian rhythms and things getting off from not having a consistent sun cycle, being stuck in space. And so that really helped me kind of shape the rest of the story around that, now that I had that trigger point to jump off from there.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. You know, I just watching this show called Alone, where people are out in the woods just alone, trying to see how long they can survive, and the winner gets a grand amount of money. And they keep popping up little survival facts at the bottom. And one guy was probably 3-4 days in, and he was super depressed because the sun never touched on his portion of the woods, basically because of the mountain. And they said that that could actually impact you by not getting a little bit of sun daily and stuff like that. So just you saying that, it was just like, wow, that's awesome that you guys had the kind of knowledge to create the catalyst in the situation off of you know, some nice little facts instead of forcing something. You know, so the story was definitely well written.
Alaska.
Yeah. Oh, okay. See.
Yeah. Up north where the sun doesn't happen very often, you know.
Yeah. So I commend you guys. I really like the story. I really liked it a lot. One of my favorite questions. Let's see here. Let me make sure I get it right. Yeah. Which do you feel is harder, pre-production, production, or post-production?
You go for something.
I think they each are their own beast. And it kind of depends on the role that you play in the film. So for me personally, like, so pre-production was probably the biggest because we had a month to build the set. And we both worked full-time jobs. So we had 40 hours already taken to full-time jobs. We have an 11-year-old daughter. So like school, and she was doing cheer at the time.
Oh,
so,
wow.
you know, we had cheer practices and stuff like that. And so we literally were squeezing in building times until dark, right? And then when we finally were able to move the set pieces into like the sound stage where we could have like a light instead of like relying on the daylight outside, we were able to stay a little bit longer and work on it a little bit longer. So we had more time for it, but that was probably the most stressful. And then of course for me, because I'm the editor, like it was of course post-production, but that's just because I'm a perfectionist. And so the way I function is if something's not right, I completely scrap it and redo it again. And so like I recolored the film probably like 4 times. I redid the VFX like several times until I was happy with it. And so, you know, I think it's just one of those things where like, as like a creator, you could probably work on something over and over and over again. If you didn't have a deadline, you probably would never get it out. So
very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
How about you?
The pre-production was pretty tough, just on those time constraints. And I'm also kind of in the same vein where I'm kind of a perfectionist. And so it's like I just kept trying to do more and more and more and more. And then there was like 3 or 4 drafts of the script, and I still wasn't super happy with it by the time production hit, you know, because it wasn't all completely shored up and super tight. But at some point in time, you kind of just have to cut it and go. And then production was, I mean, the production went relatively smooth. I had a couple like hiccups. Like I had created this whole shot list to make it easier, and the program that printed it out had some sort of error and shuffled all of my shots out of order. And so like 5 seconds into filming, shot list was like thrown out.
It's just like on the floor. Yeah, people are walking on it at this point. Like.
Exactly. And Brie is just looking at me, and I'm like over in the corner next to the set, just like this, like staring at the ground. Like fetal
position, you know?
Yeah, just trying to like figure some stuff out. And so,
wow.
You know, supposedly, at least nice, like my DP said that he didn't realize I was having like a breakdown the whole time. He's like, oh, everything seemed fine. So I'm like, as long as everyone else thought I had it together, then that's all that matters.
You make it.
Yeah. Those shot lists, man, that I know the feeling of that, especially if it's if you're really looking forward to it, because sometimes you worry if you go off your mind, you don't realize you missed a shot until you're editing, you know. So those shot lists are important. So were you able to recover that shot list, or did you have to just wing it going forward?
We essentially just had to wing it, just because we were on such a time crunch. But I kind of like.
Great job.
Yeah, thanks. We kind of just took the script, and I was trying to look at the script and just redo everything as I went along. There's a couple shots that, like, for sure got missed.
Yeah.
That I found, you know, I just realized after the fact.
Does it drive you crazy when you rewatch it?
Yeah, it definitely does a little bit. And I was like having a few meltdowns after the fact when the shooting was done, just like, oh, I should have just made them set up this again. And that was the hard part too, because with having to move like walls from the set and shift things around, it takes time to actually reset up certain sequences. And it's just, you know, I had to call in a lot of favors to make this film, and so a lot of the people that were helping me out were on tight schedules too.
Yeah.
And so it was just, you
Our
just couldn't
DP,
come back.
Our DP was amazing because I had built this set to be in pieces. We needed to pull back or anything we could, but literally, like, how tall is he? Like 6 foot?
He's
like,
6-something. He's a pretty big guy.
And he just squeezed into the little nooks and crannies to get the right shots and did what he needed to. We never had to move any walls. Like, it was crazy. He just, like, he was amazing. And
yeah,
you know,
he powered through it real
great.
well.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's phenomenal when you can have a great team and people just dedicated to work like that. Speaking of the actors, how did you come across them? Did you guys hold a casting? Do you know them already?
So it was kind of a funny thing. It'll be funny for people that don't live in Utah, probably. So I put out a casting call on just a bunch of different Utah pages, because that's what I've done with other short films. Especially if you're doing a school stuff, you don't really have budget to pay actors on a school project. But a lot of people out here are really willing to help out.
We have a great community in Utah for that. Yeah.
Downside though of being in Utah is there is like adult language and adult content in my film. And I'd send the script out after people said they were interested. I'd post a synopsis, the age ranges I was looking for, and then I would send the script out to people, and I get messages back saying, "Hey, I love the film, I love the idea, but like I won't swear on camera." And so I'm like, okay. And that was about 99% of my callbacks were like that.
Feedback,
yeah, that was the feedback. And I'm also one of those people that I like to be flexible, but I also don't like to be flexible at the same time. And so I'm like, well, I wrote it this way. I want it to be this way. I'm not going to change it just because you don't want to swear.
Right.
And it all kind of worked out anyway, because we found Nicole got in touch with us, and she came in and did an audition, and I really loved it. She did a great job, was crushing it. And so I was like, well, great, you know, and we were having such a hard time finding a guy that would do the adult language part. And I was almost to the point where I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll just
make it another woman.
I'll just make another woman. We'll just do 2 girls, two women. They're going to do everything. You know, if I can find them, sweet. And so we were just trying to hurry and panic and maybe make changes if we had to. But she luckily knew Nicholas from a previous film, and so she got him in touch with us. And we watched a couple of his little things he'd been in, and he was doing a great job as well. And so she kind of facilitated him coming over to the project, and we just got that all locked in. So it was really helpful.
Yeah, before she even auditioned, I saw like her picture, and I told Dylan, I was like, she's like who I imagined, like when I read the script. And so then he was like, great, let's like audition her and see how it goes. And she came in, and like her emotional range that she had was just so huge. Like we were almost kind of like we don't even deserve her, you know, like she was just so amazing. And then she really did. She came through for us on a couple of additional things. Like, her husband, Mike McClellan, is actually the one who composed all the music for the short. And then she hooked us up with like Nick. And so she was definitely like an integral part. And so when we saw that she had won like the Best Actress award, like we were super happy for her. We were so excited because she totally deserves it. And so.
No, for sure. She did a great job. I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, I felt her frustration and the situation she was in. She conveyed it well. It was like she was trying not to panic. Like, hey, you know, what are you doing? You know, and then it ended up evolving into full blown. Like, okay, this is not, you know, I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, she did a great job. She did a great job. Because for me, the 2 biggest things I'm looking for, I'm not necessarily. We have a judging panel of mixed people, so you know that's why the voting went the way it did. But for me, I'm not always looking for this the super great cinematography. For me, it's audio. The sound is very important to me. I feel like it's a character of its own. If your sound has issues, or if it sounds like you recorded it in the bathroom, it takes me out of the moment. Because when I watch something, I get really invested, you know, and I get lost in the story. And that's the second thing. Then it's the acting that I focus on. And I really try to just get in touch with what the story is saying and where the actor is taking it. And so you guys like not only did you knock it out of the park with your sound, then she comes. Actually, both actors did a very good job.
Yeah.
But I really felt her situation, and then it looked great on top of it. I was like, man. I was so glad that you guys that were willing to submit to us. Like I said, you really
yeah, of course,
elevated our library. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Let me make sure I get back on track with these questions here, because I know that one was a little off. So, well, you kind of answered that as far as challenges faced. But what type of camera did you guys use? Do you know, or was that your DPs?
Yeah. So, like I said, we called in a bunch of favors. So I got my buddy involved. His name's Greg Johnson. Super awesome guy, and all of his work is super amazing. And he works at a production company in Utah that he owns. It's called Brute Squad. So they do a lot of TV productions, and I had worked with him previously just on commercials. I had gripped on a couple of them, and so I knew him from there. And I posted about wanting to do a sci-fi film on Facebook, and just, a bunch of people from the college saying that it wasn't going to happen because it was going to be too hard. And he was like, I'll totally come help. I want to get in on this, and we'll prove him wrong and do all these things. And so he volunteered to come help. He brought camera equipment that he had from his company. So we shot on a red helium, the 8K version.
Okay, I thought I was feeling a red quality there, but I didn't want to say. Yeah.
So we lucked out. Obviously,
so
with the college, they do have other really high quality cameras like Reds and things like that. But with how many other people are directing and doing projects simultaneously, there wasn't a lot of equipment to go around. So we were really fortunate that he brought his own camera, and he provided a ton of extra equipment to help us out as well.
Nice.
It was really great. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of naysayers when we were working on this, telling us that we weren't going to hit our deadlines, we weren't going to be able to do, we weren't going to be able to do the suspended scene, we weren't going to be able to pull that off, we weren't going to be able, there were so many things that we were told that we just weren't able to do, and it's really hard for us to be told that, and so we just were kind of like, cool, we'll watch us, and so we did. And we just did it.
Well, that's awesome. I find it. One of the things I love is when people get behind a project because they believe in the project. Like your friend bringing all his equipment and knowing what time you had to work on. He was like, you know what, I'm in. That's phenomenal. I love to hear stories like that. But I noticed that a lot of people, even people who believe that they're big movie buffs, they don't always have that vision, that creativity to see how you can get away with things without having the major equipment, like you suspended scene. You may not have been able to do it like they probably would in Hollywood with the the wires and everything, but you found a way to get it done, and you can see it, and it's like watching HGTV with Property Brothers. They're telling these people how this dump can be amazing.
I love that stuff.
Right? And the people are looking like, I don't see it. It was like, but that's because that's what we do. We see it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in film. Even people who work in the industry, I've run into so many problems where I want to cheat a scene, just getting off track. I had a trailer I shot a few years ago, and I wanted the guy to be hanging upside down, but I didn't really want to hang him upside down. We didn't have the resources, so I wanted him to kind of just, since we were in a warehouse, I wanted him to kind of hook his legs into the forklift and hang upside down like you were on a monkey bars, and we just wouldn't show the forklift, right? And I ended up arguing with a couple of people on set. It was like, no, that's going to look cheap. It was like, no, just trust me. You won't see the forklift at all. You're only going to see his torso and head hanging upside down, and we'll go in tight. Okay, and so, of course, we did it, but after I had to force them, and then after, of course, they just thought it was the most amazing shot, and you would think they created it or something to that effect. So.
I love that.
Yeah, that's kind of definitely how ours all shook out, especially because there's a ton of times where the script would get read out loud, and the most common thing I got was, okay, well, we're gonna read Dylan's script here, and everyone just forget about budget constraints. Just imagine he has $1 million to make this movie. And so when we go to critiquing it, don't say anything about how it needs more money for the budget, because we all know it needs too much money anyway. And it's like, well, obviously I don't have a budget, but I'm still going to try to make it anyway.
I'm still going to try, because there are creative ways to do things. Absolutely. I find that the word that gets tossed now when people they want to be supportive, but they don't want to tell you that they don't think you have enough money. They're like, well, it's ambitious. It's an ambitious script.
That's exactly the word I got. This is the most ambitious college script I've ever read, like multiple times. And it was just.
That's the word. That's
So I got it a
now
lot.
when I hear ambitious, I don't take it as I'm like, okay, we'll see. All right. That's pretty awesome. All right. So looking back, is there anything that you guys would do differently? I mean, I know you said you wish you could have set up additional shots because you didn't have your shot list. But beyond that, is there anything that you would do differently when you watch the final cut?
I mean, I think the structure of the story, I still agree with how it's shot. I had a few things that I literally just had to change as drafts went on that, I really wanted to have like a spaceship helmet and a bigger spacesuit originally, but I just didn't have the time or the funds or just didn't know how to create one. And so I kind of wish I had that and a few different things that I think would have just made it elevated a little bit more. And then obviously the shot list was the big killer for me, and I missed a couple shots that I really wanted to have. But aside from that, like, for the time crunch we had and the money we had, overall I've been really happy with, what we managed to pull off with all the obstacles we had along the way.
Yep.
Awesome.
Same.
How about you?
Exactly.
Those are the things that you would do different if you could?
Yeah, just a little bit more pre-production if I could, and then a little bit more time to just fix the script up on a couple beats, and then, having a shot list. That would be the only stuff that I would change probably.
Gotcha. All right. So with the story of Circadian, is this it for it, or do you have any plans to turn it into something bigger, like a web series or a feature film, or was this story just something just to flesh out and leave it at that?
So I mean, when I had a lot of my original concepts, there's a lot of room that I had made where it could be expanded into something like a feature, just because I had a lot of stuff that took place outside of the spaceship as well, a lot more going on in the spaceship, a lot more cat and mouse games between, the actor and the AI. There was a lot of different stuff I had put together that just obviously didn't make it because I had to have something that was a certain time frame. But, as of right now, we're not really doing anything with it. If there was, any interest, if some studio hopped out of nowhere and was like, hey, we want to make this into a feature, then I definitely have stuff ready to roll for fleshing it out more. But yeah, as of right now, it's kind of just sitting where it's at.
Well, we kind of have a couple other projects that we're working on right now that are a little bit more like we're passionate about and kind of like fit like what we're going for more. So Circadian was definitely something that we did like because he had he needed to do something for like directing, of course, and but like I think that like it was really good. It would be cool. I mean, it would be cool maybe to make it a web series or something too, like flesh it out like even further. So
yeah, 10-15-minute episodes could be pretty impactful if you have somewhere to go with it. That would be interesting to see if you guys do if it grows anymore, or if somebody comes to you decide to push, let me know. I'd love to track it and then shoot your behind the scenes.
Definitely this time.
You guys have the best stories for on-set issues. All right. So my final question, which is I hope you guys took the time to prepare for this one, because it gets people stuck a lot. But if you had the money or the opportunity to collaborate or include anyone in the industry, or not even anyone in the world with one of your projects, who would that be? And if each of you could name 3, that would be grateful.
You can go for it. I got
me.
One.
Yeah. Okay. So number 1, I would love, like, I've always dreamed of working with Taika Waititi. Like, his his vibes, like the way he is. Like, I watched like the behind the scenes for like Jojo Rabbit, and like I don't know if you watched him during COVID, but he did where he read the James and Giant Peach book with a bunch of like different actors and stuff, and he did a web series on that. Amazing. So like I just think that like I would love to like have him on a project just to bring that kind of like energy, and like he's just so meticulous. I love that. And then of course like Bob Dixay, because he's like one of my favorite editors. He just did a phenomenal job on Knives Out as well as like on Star Wars, because he did edit one of the Star Wars films as well. And then the last one of course is Madsen Tomlin. He like wrote well, he's starting to co-write on like Batman. right now, but like he's a writer, and so I just think that would be like an amazing team to kind of put together and see what they like come up with. And so
I can definitely see that. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice list. How about you, Dylan?
For me, so my first one is I would love to just like do anything with. So his name is Denis, and I always butcher his last name, I feel like, but it's Denis Villeneuve, who did Prisoners, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario, Enemy, things like that. He had all those great films, and I just feel like he's such. For me, he seems like he's such a prolific director already, even with his really limited just library of films that he has. His stuff is just mind-blowing to me, and he just has such great vision for how the pacing is, like building tension, all the world building he does, and then he just seems to pull crazy performances out of people that you just don't get in other films. And so anything with him, I would love to just experience any sort of work there. Second for me would be probably one that a lot of people would say is like, I'd love to work with Roger Deakins. And even before I even was too much into knowing a lot of DPs and things like that, I've watched so many films that he's done and just never thought about it. And then, the past 10 years or so, I've kind of gotten more into it, and just all the stuff he does is just phenomenal. And he's done a ton of Denis movies as well. And so everything he does, to me, he just has such a fantastic style and eye for storytelling. So I'd love to work with him. And then finally, my other one would be John Williams, just because almost every childhood film I love, he's done the soundtrack for. So any excuse to do something with John Williams for me would be awesome.
That's great. I never thought I would hear his name on the list, but that's pretty phenomenal.
We end up like whistling or like humming or singing his songs all the time at the house. We just break out into it, and all of us just go to town. So
I'm actually the same way. I could be sometimes, I could be in a mall during the holidays, and then I'll hear something. And I'll track it all the way, and it's a store playing one of the movies.
Exactly.
And I'm like, I knew it. I think, I hear it like halfway across the mall, and I'm like, I hear this. But that's great list. I wish I had more questions for you guys, because you seem like you have so much to offer. But we're gonna bring it to an end here. But I really appreciate everything that you guys giving us a shot. Our first year, our first festival. We were supposed to do a physical festival, and it ended up being online because of the COVID situation. And it ended up still working out, and a lot of people gave us a shot in our first year. A lot of people tend to just want to go to the already established festivals. They don't know if it's worth trying, but you guys gave us a shot. You elevated our library. You helped make us a success. And I really thank you guys for that. You guys are very talented, and I hope to see more from you guys. I'm just going to go ahead and plant that seed that we're already going to be taking. October 3rd, we start taking submissions for next August. So we're going to give people more time to submit or to prepare. But if you guys are going to be doing something between now and June 26th, 2021 is the deadline, the final deadline. You get something complete, please let us know and submit it. We look forward to seeing what you guys got.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having us. It was definitely a fun festival, and the opportunities have been amazing. And it was really great for us to post it, and our friends and families to finally be able to see it, because we've been keeping it so
hasn't been posted at all. It still isn't posted.
It still isn't posted after this film. We've taken it down, and so we've got some other festivals that are coming up, and so people are kind of like, they're commenting on our actors pages and stuff, like, hey, when do we get to see this? When do we get to see this? And so when you guys posted it, we were like, here you go.
Here's your time to see it.
30
so it was
days.
really awesome. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback of this formula, and we're going to do it again the same way next year, just because we don't know. We're hoping everything will be back to normal, but we don't know. We don't want to have to worry about adjusting. So it'll be another online festival again for 30 days.
Awesome.
So you can, if you are doing something big and everybody's wondering when they can see it.
Definitely. We'll keep you in mind for sure. Thank you.
Again, I'm talking with the Illume Short Film Festival winners, talking to Dylan Lunt and Brie Seaton, the creators of Circadian. I want to thank you guys for joining us. And thank you for sitting with me on another Movie Lingo discussion. We'll see you guys on the next one.